Hello, I'm Matt Singer. I am the Arts and Culture Editor at Willamette Week, and today I am speaking with Andy Baio. He is the co-founder of the Internet Culture Festival XOXO, which has been held for the last 8 years or so in Portland. Always draws a big crowd. Uh, Andy, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you made a decision to cancel XOXO pretty early on in this pandemic. It's usually held in September, and you canceled it in mid-March.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that decision and how that decision was made.
Yeah, and at the time, I mean, now it's just a foregone conclusion. So the idea of gathering 1,200 people traveling, internationally to come together for an event, in September, of course, it's not in the cards. But at that time, it was March 16th. I was just looking at the post, and at that point, on the day that we announced in the U.S., there were a total of 80 confirmed coronavirus deaths. And we had made the decision, in advance of that, and had to, figure out if we could unwind, this, and if it was the right thing to do. So at the time, it wasn't a clear if things were where things were going to go, and our event being in September, it was pretty unusual to there were events that had canceled at that point, but they were absolutely enormous events that were going to be taking place within the next month or two. But for us, we're an independent event. We're extremely small team, and it's the only event that we run. And the idea that we could, basically the moment that we put tickets on sale, started collecting money, we start spending that money immediately. We would be locked into contracts with vendors and venues and hotels, and it was just, we knew that the moment that we started taking money from sponsors, from attendees, it just was not going to be something that we would be able to recover from if we had to cancel closer to the event.
You mentioned that you are in contact with other event organizers. How are they feeling right now about 2021? Because I think even now, considering how long it takes to put on large-scale events,
Right.
There's a lot of uncertainty if even there's going to be anything happening a year from now. What have you been hearing from people?
Everyone is just trying to shift online. I mean, that's where it's at right now. We don't know when this is going to resolve, when it's going to be safe to gather large groups of people again. The events that are local, the ones that don't draw an audience from outside of the state or outside the country, they'll probably, and the smaller the event too, like the smaller the event, the more local the audience, the more likely that it's going to be able to resume before others. The larger the event, when you're getting to events the size of ours, where it's about 1,200 people, or larger, and when they're traveling nationally or internationally, I honestly don't know about September 2021. I think it's a real, I don't know what's going to happen, and so it may be that the last XOXO may have been the last one. We don't know.
So how have you been sort of spending your time now in quarantine? Aside from, like you said, some of the software stuff, some of the stuff you've been doing, to kind of bring, some extra income your way. How have you just kind of been, spending your off hours?
I am a total quarantine cliche. I started baking. I started playing Animal Crossing obsessively. I have found some solace in community online. The XOXO crowd, for those who are unfamiliar, the thing that there's a big misunderstanding about XOXO is that people think it's a technology conference. It's a festival about the internet, and what ties everyone together is that they are independent artists and creators of all kinds that are using the internet to make a living. And so yeah, they have that in common. They are kind of an extremely online group of people, but they're writers and journalists and musicians and filmmakers and podcasters and designers and illustrators and video game creators, tabletop designers, like all these people that are using platforms like Kickstarter and Patreon and whatever to make a living. And because of that, they're really comfortable with online community. We have a Slack with all of the past attendees, and they've self-organized in hundreds of different channels around various interests. The two most popular channels right now are COVID-19, which is about discussion, coronavirus, and Animal Crossing. It has been like the two shared obsessions, and then the cooking channel is like really blown up too. No big surprise.
What are some of the coolest projects you've seen so far emerge from this pandemic?
One is called Like Online, which is it's a free web-based kind of a gallery of games. It's a multiplayer space. It's very like lo-fi pixel art. Anybody can go check it out right now. Where you go in and you have like little pixel art avatar, and you walk around in a gallery space with other people, and each room sort of has an interesting dynamic, like a room where nobody can say the same word twice. So if you try to say a word that had previously been said in that room, it's like the censorship room. If you try to say a word that had been said before, then it just blocks it out. So you have to be completely unique in the words that you say. So if you misspell something and it hasn't been misspelled that particular way before, then you can talk. There's another room where it's like kind of like a rap battle, where you walk into the room, the moment that you type something, a beat starts, and everything that you say has to rhyme. Like people can talk in the room, but the things that you type have to rhyme. So it's, there's experimentation in space like that. There's other projects that are doing kind of like spatial audio and video. There's a site called Online Town, where you get you're basically a little avatar walking around, and it uses your webcam to do audio and video. But as you walk close to someone, you can see them, and when you walk away from them, they can't see you anymore. So you could be in a room with a bunch of people and kind of wander off and have a private conversation. It's using webcam, like your actual audio and video, but you have this sort of pixel art representation in space. There's a bunch of projects kind of along those lines, trying to find new facets of online interaction, ways of making you feel like you have the depth of a conversation, but that it's something that scales to more than just like a Zoom room of 10 people.
Has been in self-isolation for 2.5 months now taught you about yourself?
If there's one thing that I do pretty well, it's that I think I'm pretty good at finding interesting things on the internet. I've collected all of these different ways of doing that and built tools for myself to help do that. It's how I book the entire festival and find all of these different people doing interesting things online. But I think that this environment has broken that in a couple interesting ways. For me, it's the constant flow of high signal information has made it so that there's just too much for me to possibly absorb, and it's also drowned out so much of the non. I tend to be interested in the more playful aspects of the internet. People that are experimenting with art and code, and people that are doing interesting things online, and it's become increasingly difficult to find those things because there is a global pandemic going on. Yes, but also people that are continuing to work on those things, but nobody's signal boosting them. Do you know what I mean? Like if you work on a webcomic, or you're ready to you've been working on your album and you're ready to put that out. We saw this after the 2016 election, that the political cycle had made it because there was constant fires happening constantly. It just made it very difficult for people to promote their work, and for other people that love those people work to feel comfortable signal boosting it, because there was just so much other seemingly urgent things happening. And then a pandemic happens, and it's like that's that, in much larger magnitude. So I mean, this is like the biggest like whining on the yacht thing. I can't even really like raise it, but it has been, for someone whose job historically has been to find people and projects that are interesting and that are pushing new ground, and a lot of that is difficult to find. It is still happening in quarantine, but it's increasingly difficult to find.